Mr. President, I rise to talk about two issues. First, I will talk about the pending business before the Senate, which is the FAA reauthorization in a moment. And I certainly want to commend my dear friend and colleague, the distinguished chairman of the Commerce Committee, for what he's done in bringing the reauthorization to the floor, the manner in which he's fashioned it. And this is an opportunity to create 150,000 jobs, modernize our system for this 21st century, save millions of gallons of fuel that get spent under a system that is antiquated, and people sitting in planes just idling, $9 billion in lost revenue to the nation as a result of an antiquated system. All of this will be dealt with the FAA reauthorization. But before I get to that, I want to speak for a moment on an item that we will be voting on tomorrow, which is critically important, the HIRE Act, to make sure that we put the nation back to work. And one of those items that I think is incredibly important, that has been getting, I think, the wrong view here, is the question of the Build America bonds. It's one that has been debated quite a bit on the floor the last couple of times we have been in session. My view is that these bonds have been one of the most successful pieces of the economic recovery package passed last year. They've helped to finance nearly $80 billion in economic development projects in all 50 states. Those are projects that are win-win for America. By helping state and local governments finance vital public infrastructure projects, we're putting Americans back to work, building better, stronger communities, better schools, retooling our infrastructure, preparing for the new economy. That's what makes the Build America bonds so effective. By lowering borrowing costs, these bonds incentivize investments in our communities across America. This gives state and local entities the resources to fund badly needed projects that we all benefit from. Now, Mr. President, these bonds have been a resounding success. And as a matter of fact, in a November article by Stephen Gandel that appeared on Time.com, it ran under this headline: a stimulus success, Build America bonds are working. In this article, Amy Resnick, the editor-in-chief of a publication which followed bond markets, was quoted as saying, quote, "It's clearly been a success as a means of stimulating the economy." And when we talk about stimulating the economy, ultimately we're talking about putting Americans back to work. The bill we have before us that we'll vote on tomorrow expands this successful program to allow issuers of school construction and energy project bonds to convert these tax credit bonds into a Build America bond. Seems like a rather simple provision to me, a common sense provision that says if it's been successful, why not expand on it? If we can stimulate needed construction for schools and communities across America, if we have a proven way to promote putting people to work on critical energy projects, why wouldn't we do it? Now, some of my Republican friends say they want to work on job creation, but I find it ironic that on one hand they speak about creating jobs, on the other hand they criticize Build America bonds for, quote, doing too much to create jobs and facilitate investment in vital public projects in communities across America. Mr. President, you can't have it both ways. You can't blame the majority for not focusing on job creation while criticizing one of the most successful programs as having done too much. At a time of 10% unemployment, the question is not, are we helping our communities too much? Rather, the fundamental question the Congress must be focused on is how do we create more investment so that we can create more jobs, so that we can put more Americans back to work. I think the lessons of history are important. Build America bonds, the jobs they create, the good they do, underscore some of the historic differences between this side of the aisle and the other side. History tells us that in difficult economic times, creating badly needed jobs for families struggling to make ends meet strengthens the economy and helps us rebuild a better future. In the Great Depression, Franklin Roosevelt understood the need for government to step in and create jobs. He rebuilt America's rusted old 19th century infrastructure, retooled old systems, and prepared the nation for the 20th century. History has a way of repeating itself. We shouldn't ignore it. We should instead learn from it, learn from our great successes so we don't repeat our worst failures. A proactive government creating a jobs agenda and putting people back to work during the New Deal, rebuilding our infrastructure, was one of those successes. On the other hand, a static government doing nothing to create jobs in the face of massive unemployment, as Herbert Hoover did, was one of our worst failures. It seems to me the lesson of history is clear. If we're too short-sighted to repeat the things that work, we're doomed to repeat the things that failed. Finally, Mr. President, on the second issue I want to talk about, and the pending issue before the Senate, is that we need this FAA Reauthorization bill because it will create jobs, over 150,000. It will reduce congestion, that $9 billion lost for America by airplanes idling and people not being productive at work as they try to get to their business appointments, and others who get lost along the way in terms of the time that they've lost being with their families and friends. And it also improves safety, which should be job one. It will get an investment in infrastructure that will get more people to their destinations on two words we want to hear more and more, that the chairman's trying to make happen: on time, on time. And it will address several essential safety issues related to oversight, pilot training, pilot safety, pilot fatigue after the tragic Kogan air crash last year in Buffalo. This bill takes several steps to ensure that, one, extremely high level of safety exists throughout the entire transportation system. It protects passengers from being stranded on the tarmac like those at Stewart Airport in New York who sat on a plane that ran out of food. Things got so bad that each passenger was given 4 potato chips and half a cup of water. That's simply ridiculous and unacceptable. This bill will put an end to these stories by requiring each airline to provide adequate provisions to stranded planes and give all passengers the right to deplane after 3 hours, if not sooner. So I want to salute Senator Rockefeller and the members of the Commerce Committee who've worked to bring this important bill to the floor. There are some things I hope that we have offered that will be accepted into a manager's amendment. I look forward to some opportunities. We have something called the Clean Airfares Act. I believe that when you buy a ticket, you should have the right to know what you're paying for. Anything short of that is simply unfair. My amendment, number 3506, would require airlines to be upfront with their fees so consumers can make an informed decision. It seems like the airlines never have met a fee they do not like. And these are some of them, Mr. President. We've got 2 easels here just to try to make the case. Rather busy, but this gives you a sense to these 2 charts that lay out 13 common airline fees that 18 different airlines assign. Fees for ordering your ticket by phone, fuel surcharges, fees for traveling with a pet. Last year they invented a new fee. It's called the holiday fee. Because these fees don't appear alongside a ticket's base airfare, consumers have little idea of how much the ticket will eventually cost them. So I brought an example that we worked on to dramatize what we're talking about here. Airline A's ticket from BWI Airport to LaGuardia Airport appears to be $2 cheaper than Airline B's ticket, $223.40, compared to $225.40. But then come the hidden fees. Airline A charges you $120 round trip to check 2 bags, plus an additional $200 to travel with a pet. By contrast, Airline B allows you to check 2 bags for free and charges you $150 to travel with a pet. The end result, when you add the fees up, is that what appeared to be the least expensive ticket for the same exact flight is actually $150 more expensive. $150 more expensive. My amendment shines a light on airline fees and surcharges so consumers have an accurate picture about what their trip is likely to cost them. So we hope that the committee will accept that. We also have an amendment on focused flying, which was written in response to the flight that flew 150 miles beyond its destination, allegedly because the pilots were too distracted to notice the airport. I'm pleased that, working closely with Senator Dorgan and the committee, we were able to include language in the underlying bill that would prohibit unnecessary electronic devices from the cockpit. However, I believe it's important that we look at all pilot distractions, and our amendment calls for the FAA to conduct a study on the broader issue of distracted flying and its impact on flight safety. And the last amendment I have filed will require the FAA to monitor the air noise impacts of New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia airspace redesign and simply provide that data to the public. I've not been supportive of the airspace redesign in part because it was done in such a way where noise impacts are rather severe. Now that the redesign is being implemented, I think simply the public has a right to know what consequences there are in that redesign, and that some level of transparency should be provided to the flying public and the communities that are affected. Lastly, I look forward to what I hope in the end product as we move through this chamber and have a conference that no longer makes it tougher for some workers to organize unions than others who do the same work. I believe the rules should be applied evenly across the board. Unions help improve safety standards, which not only benefit workers, it touches all of us who drive on our roads or fly in our skies, and I hope the ultimate result will create that opportunity. So it's time that we finally pass the FAA reauthorization. It'll create jobs. It'll make our flying experience safer. It will make it more efficient. We will save money in our economy. And I look forward to working with Chairman Rockefeller to make the bill one that we can continue to be proud as we fly the skies of our country. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.